Hello and welcome to a special episode of Bubblegum Connect, inspired by the National Arts Festival. My name is Tony Bonani Miyambo and I am with
Phala Ookeditse Phala, who's the director of the show Commission Continua.
And I am the actor in the show Commission Continua.
So Commission Continua is a one-hander that takes about 60 minutes, and it basically explores the world of commissions of inquiry, but it also connects to the key historical moments since around the 14th century with specificity to South Africa. And the journey of the Commission Continua is told through the eyes of a character called Bright Maluleke.
So we're here to talk about theatre in a time when theatre is one of the most difficult things to do. What are your feelings around that? What are your feelings around our journey towards the National Arts Festival online edition?
It is a very interesting time, in the country, and a very interesting time in the world, and where the arts find themselves in terms of, being in the lower side of the food chain. Everybody's taking money from the arts and putting it somewhere else. And the arts are seemed, not as essential. I mean, we had a very interesting thing about with a conversation around the WHO, the World Health Organization, wanting to put the arts at the center of health as well, because there's wellness, there's mental health, depression and other things that the arts can help deal with. But the thing for me that is interesting now is having to find a way in which the arts are existing within the context of the National Arts Festival as a hybrid. Intentionally they wanted it to be hybrid, which meant you'll have a few audiences and then also be online. But the situation of Corona has forced it to be almost just one-sided, which is the online aspect. And we find ourselves having to perform to cameras as we speak into cameras. So
it's a weird thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, but there's one thing that is quite interesting is that such programs as such as the Bubblegum Connect also connects you to the digital platform, and the footprint becomes even much more bigger. A plane flew over us, but that is one of the things that is actually surreal about being in the world, is that everything else happens while you are doing something else, and that's what Commission Continua is about.
Yeah,
is about one of the key things in Commission Continua is the oral experience of being in the world. We've just experienced that. We are sitting here. We don't want the noise of the helicopter, but the helicopter must go somewhere, and perhaps it's going to collect somebody who's ill. Perhaps it's running after a thief. You never know. But the important thing is, as we are sitting here, perhaps there's an accident somewhere. Perhaps somebody has just died, and that kind of an acknowledgement of the world is what this play is about for me.
Yeah, before we talk about what the play is about, and I know it's weird talking about a thing when you don't really know a thing. Obviously most of the people that would be watching this aren't aware of what the play is. Hopefully you watched the live show, and hopefully you're planning to watch the other shows that are coming up. For me, as a performer maker, there was kind of a guilt that I've been carrying around the idea of what it means to make art, what it means to make live performance art in a time where it's not possible for people to gather in a space, right? And you spoke about the initial thinking around the National Arts Festival as a hybrid, which meant that there'd be a small audience that comes to the show, but the show would be live streamed with cameras there. And obviously the numbers in Joburg went up because we weren't behaving. And then from that point onwards, the circumstance of how the show must be performed changed. A lot of people at this time, it's kind of, you wake up and you've got an essential permit and you're going to work, and they're like, oh, what do you do? And you say, I'm going to go make a theater show. There's something quite absurd about us forcing or trying to make art in a time where it seems like the more important things are around people's health, around people's social economic circumstance, and I've been trying to think around whether or not, you know, it's necessary for us to do what we do in a time where, you know, the circumstances dictate to us that it's not possible.
The thing about it is that if you want to see the reason why you're living with that.
He's cheating, by the way. Can I just say this?
Yeah.
We're going to make origamis at some point, and he's already started practicing. But let's not go there.
You have had much more practice, Tony, than me.
If you practice, then I'm going to practice as well.
Okay, yeah? No problem.
Sure.
Yeah. So for me, the biggest thing about this is that our mindset has been put in such a way that to think that some of the things that we do in this world are not important.
Okay.
We are living in a time where things have been put quite hierarchical in the sense of what is important to the world.
Okay.
Science has been put as, you know, something that is important to the world more than even the growth of a tree.
Okay.
Which is a natural thing that happens. So then, therefore, when you are making art, it feels like you're not doing the thing that is necessary. When actually it is the thing that is necessary. That everything under the sun, no matter how, when somebody is fulfilling their purpose, could be, you know, them preaching, it could be them, you know, polishing a shoe, it could be them planting a tree, it could be them, you know, making some carpentry somewhere. You know, you cannot, just because there's disease or there's, you know, a pandemic, then lessen other people's, you know, vocations and skills and purposes, you know, because the attention is on one thing. So, for example, one of the things that is important, you know, for people is, you know, the activities that they make, you know, for them to keep sane. So sanity is important. And if art helps you with your sanity and your health, just like waking up, you know, doing exercises, you're a performer, Tony. You know, breathing is important. Making an exercise is important. And that is also quite healthy. So if we're thinking about the health and we're thinking about the mental, the spiritual, you know, health and, you know, the internal, external health of a being, then everything is important. So I wouldn't feel guilty for doing art. Actually, it is important as part of healing because, you know, and I think that's for me the critical thing about, you know, art.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that's why the art, right? Let's talk about the thing itself,
Yeah.
which is Commission Continua,
Yeah.
which is currently going to be running at the National Arts Festival. We've got 3 performances from the 27th. And for people at home, Commission Continua is a play about kind of an office clerical worker whose job it is to archive and file certain documents, reports from various commissions of inquiry. And through engaging with these reports and this material, he develops a kind of a psychosis around what it is that it means for us to sit in a kind of a commission headspace and a kind of fatigue it causes South Africans in general, but also the placement of commissions and what they've meant in our landscape. I mean, we all know of various commissions of inquiry, the most, you know, prominent one now being the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, but before that there's been various commissions of inquiry, you know, tracking back, you know, things like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But the interesting thing that we found for us in the making of the show is that we've had commissions of inquiry from the year 1881. You know, from long before democracy was a thing in our country. We started to think about what is the place of commissions in our psyche, in our society, and how is it that we are processing some of the most devastating events in South Africa through the commission lens, and what that kind of fatigue would do to a figure whose name is Bright Maluleke, who kind of has this awkward relationship with paper, with the photocopy machine, and he kind of tracks his history and his belonging through paper and commissions of inquiry. The idea of the show came about when we were both involved in season 5 at the Center for the Less Good Idea, and Phala invited me to be one of the participants, and he said to me, "What have you been thinking about?" And I said, "Well, I've been really interested in like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Not only that, but I started listening to other commissions of inquiry, and I was interested about why it is that, you know, orally those commissions of inquiry started to sound similar, and how it is that we're making sense of, you know, some of the things that have happened in South Africa through similar mechanisms, but we're getting to the other side and we're repeating the same mistakes, and we're going back into other commissions of inquiry, and what that would mean, what that would look like in a theatre show. And then we started to explore together. I don't know if there's anything you want to say to that besides cheating with origami.
So the thing that is interesting, that was interesting for me, Tony, about this is that when we started this production and thinking about it, was that the first thing that we thought about the reports. And what is captured in the report of an academy, of a commission, right? So we started looking at one of the things that, perhaps, I don't know if the camera will be able to capture this after I've written, of commission itself, all right? So if you look at the word, commission itself, and then it's called a commission of inquiry, which means there's an inquiry about something that we need to, to be thinking about. And then the thing that is important is the report. So I'll write the word report just below here so that, you can.
Jesus, feels like we're back in school.
Yes. So it's a report, and it's made of two words, re and the pot. So where's the pot? Or where do you put things? Pots are things where you receive or put things.
Okay.
And report, to is to do again. So already you are thinking, the thing that comes to your mind is commissions have been done since 1881. And what are those commissions? What were they speaking about? You have had commissions on, on health issues, but life as it many happens. We've got, commissions of inquiry that has happened around mining.
The conditions of the native.
The condition of the native, all those kind of things.
No, really, if you go do your research, there's commissions of inquiry for virtually anything. There's been commissions of inquiry into sugar, into the hot dogs and coffee vendors. There's been commissions of inquiry into whether the KwaZulu-Natal must be its own nation separate from South Africa. This is a real commission that happened. And here we are sitting in 2021, we're asking, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, what is the relation? So that was a very interesting thing for us.
So the thing that was interesting was when we look at the whole, word commission, then it starts, if you take out the C and the O, which is the core, you are left with, word that is like mission. You take the last three words, you are left with miss. You take, just the C, you are left with omission. So all this kind of things, the word itself tells you what has happened in the commissions. There's been many omissions. For example, one of the questions that the production asks is that why was there never, a commission of inquiry into slavery? Who determines this is worth being commissioned and this is not worth being commissioned? Why has there never been a commission of inquiry into colonization, for example? And the kind of the resources, the multiple resources that have been, depleted from Africa and all those kind of things. So, and then you ask yourself, who then decides this is worth a commission, this is not worth a commission? That is worth a commission, this is not worth a commission. There have been wars of Mfecane, no commission of inquiry. There have been wars of the Khoi and the Dutch, no commission of inquiry. And when you look at South Africa, and then you look at the kind of the relationship and the tensions that have come through, then you ask yourself all this, questions as who commissions? Who is the commissioner? And what is the mission of this person? What are they trying to achieve? In them saying this is worth a commission. All right. Let me give you an example. From listeriosis alone, there have been 200 people dead. All right. Marikana, it was around 40 or so people. All right. The brutality of the Marikana situation, not to equate them, but to say, if in our food you're finding something that kills people and over 200 people, and there isn't an inquiry as to why 200 people died, but there's an inquiry as to why 34 or 40 people died, then what is the balance? Are we possessed with inquiring the mistakes of the people or of the system that we live with? Those are the kind of questions that one had. And in terms of what this, play is about.
But how do we make sense of the things that happen in our society if we don't use mechanisms like I'm on the fence. I always as an actor, because I think it's part of that thing of how do you find empathy in some of the darker spaces that we exist in, right? And so watching the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, for example, for me, there was partly something necessary about providing the space to ventilate some of these things. But I also recognized within the ventilation of some of these things how incredibly sanitized it was as a space. I mean, Tutu himself as a figure is sanitized. He is the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, know, and there's a kind of a brutality and a rage that I think we're seeing now in what's happening in our country that I think we were forced to suppress and swallow in many ways through processes like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, right? Where there's a necessary raging that needed to happen in order to purge some of the things that have been difficult ways in which we unpack some of the most difficult periods in our history. And so that's something that also then starts to be texture in the way in which Bright Maluleke, the character in the play, in his characterization, start to live. He's a person that suffers from a kind of a psychosis and a PTSD that's caused by constant engagement with the material, with the deaths, with the event, with the torture, with the entrapment, with the, and so also as an actor playing that, there was a constant fear around, how far is too far when one is unpacking kind of the senseless ways in which we've made sense of some of the things that have happened in our society. But also I don't know what else there would be to replace that.
Yeah, and the thing that is important, Tony, is I'm not anti-commissions, for example. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not saying commissions are not necessary.
Are you sure? Omission, mission?
No, of course there's that. But I mean, what I'm saying is that we need to pay, much attention to what, for example, in the report, one of the things that one investigates in a production like Commission Continua is, what does the report do? If I read a report of an inquiry into the death of General Delere, for example, if I read that, will I be able to learn a lesson out of it? If I read that, will I be able to connect with the emotion of the moment? If I do that, does the report represent everything and the honesty and the honesty and the authenticity of the truth of the matter? Those are the kind of questions that one has. And the reason why, and also because, remember, on paper where we write this report is the trees that we have also killed to make the paper. And that paper goes into the archive.
Well, now you're making me feel bad for making a butterfly out of.
No, of course. I mean, these are the things that happen, in life.
And can I just show you, like, this is his and this is mine. I'm just saying.
I mean, you went about and then did a butterfly, which I taught you how to do.
Okay, that's directing. Not. The point is that you haven't done one. But
so
carry
can
on.
Your butterfly fly?
Sure.
Yeah.
As you speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now when you find, for me, what is key is that as human beings, we can not only rely on inquiring ourselves without trying to learn something out of it.
Sure.
And that's what, for me, the commissions of inquiry should be. What we are missing in the commission of inquiry is a learning moment. It's a thing not to repeat. And we have repeated the same mistakes all over again. I mean, how different is Marikana from 1976? Or from the Buipatong, or Sharpeville massacre, from the Langa massacre? I mean, how have we not learned from those moments? To the extent that, I mean, this right now, as we're speaking, you and I are speaking, we're talking about the death toll of people that have been killed. Some even in the Marikana style. Not by the police this time, but also by people, who are part of, the citizenry of this world. And for me is that this word, history, because when we do this, we look into history. So history it's made of two words.
Yeah.
High and story.
Yeah.
So the only way that we look and learn from history is when we take, the history and turn it into a high story of the now. Which means there's something we are heightening out of it. There's something we are learning out of it. It's something that we are pulling from it in order for us to not repeat ourselves.
Sure.
And for me, that is the key important, it's the important thing. So when we look at, Commission Continua, we ask ourselves, what is the thing that is missing? What is it that we don't hear? What is it that we don't feel by reading the reports, by looking at the way the commissions of inquiry unfold? And we're like, we exist in this world through our eyes, we hear things, we feel things. How about trying to use sound, for example, as a way of evoking the memory and making a new connection with the commission of inquiry? So for me, the as much as there's a critique, there's also a help to the Commission of Inquiry that the PRE provides, is that there are many ways of, like we use the loop, the kind of the madness that and the psychosis that a bride goes through, the loop then contains it, and it shows you how repetitive, things are. So you're using the loop to evoke repetition, but also, that kind of unthoughtful, lack of empathy, in the loop. And then at the same time, you find bride trying to, latch onto the emotion and latch onto the, using the same kind of, the sound to evoke, the things, to remember many things, to put the memory anew, in a different kind of way. And for me, those are the things that are key to understanding how we come to something. And it's to say, commissions of inquiry are not enough if people themselves are not bringing themselves, to judge themselves, to deal with themselves, to deal with their own kind of behaviors in situations where they have erred, because we are fallible human beings. But our fallibility is not the reason why we should not take accountability and responsibility for things that we do. And the biggest thing for me is that we have learned to live with violence, and our silence is so big that it has become something that eats up our our souls, it eats up our empathy, it eats up our relation, our ability to correlate with other people, and those compounded problems, require perhaps individual, taking stock and making a commission of inquiry at the level of the personal. Not at the level of the the communal, because right now you find that at the level of the communal, like one of the questions that has been debated around the Zondo Commission is that here you've got the corruptees and the corruptor. Who's the corruptor? For example, we're talking about around 16 billion that is gone. Who, if the government official is the corruptee, the person who's at the helm of enabling corruption, who's the corruptor? And where are the corruptors? Are they taking accountability? Somebody took the money. Who's the person who took the money? Where's that person who took the money?
And we're putting almost a billion. We're putting almost a billion rand into asking who took the money.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're spending around nearly $1 billion to ask who took 16 billion. And it's those kind. Commissions of inquiries are costing on average around 200 million. And now, the price is going up and up and up and up. And who's paying the cost?
Yeah.
The
when
last
you say
example,
up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
You spoke about the loop earlier, and Phala speaking about the, technology which is predominantly seen with musical artists, a loop station, a loop pedal, and like kind of looping phrases of music in order to build up a fuller song. We use the device in the show to loop text, and to play with text,
and to loop sound
as well, which was not a cheap exercise. It was a very expensive experiment to do, and I'm glad that it worked out for the show. You spoke earlier about how kind of there's a violence around the repetition of things. I agree, at a certain level there is a kind of a violence around it, but there was a point where it became a kind of a comfort for me as the performer in the show, listening to the repetition of the loop and kind of understanding the gravity. Sometimes it takes, you know, that thing of you grow up and your mother tells you all the time, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And you don't listen until the day you listen. And there's a reason you listen. It kind of had the same feeling for me, being inside the loop, being the person who's creating the loop, making sense of the loop, building sense over and above the loop around, you know, what it is that repetition and asking certain things and saying certain things can do within the process of making sense and meaning making. And I just want to know from you, because you had the idea also to extend because the initial draft of the show was just looping text. You had the idea of also looking into looping sound, and you had the brilliant and expensive idea of buying specialized mics for the table, which is something that we didn't have until this version that we've done at the National Arts Festival. What made you want to extend beyond what it is that we had already in kind of the single mic loop station and the spoken to kind of a more audio sensory? I mean, you even had the idea of miking. We even have a mic lapel on the photocopy machine. Why did you want to extend that audio sensory sense of the show beyond just what it is that we had found, which was a cool thing that a loop station can do in the way that it creates repetitions?
The thing about it is that when I was reading the commissions of inquiry as reports, as things on paper, I was like, I can't hear the voice of the victim. I can't hear the event. I can't connect to what had happened. So the best way is to try and create a play and a theater performance that is able to connect me to the event. Because without the event, I think we're not learning anything, all right? Without those guns going in the Marikana, you don't feel, you know, connection of, you know, people dying in that kind of a way. Without you, you know, connecting to, for example, you know, Becky putting on headphones and there's a bomb when he presses play on his Walkman. You know, you don't then connect to the moment, because that is the thing that we're inquiring. We're inquiring why somebody felt it was okay for them to build a bomb on a Walkman and give it to somebody else, and then it kills that person. So for me, you know, that kind of, there's somebody in Soweto where Becky was, who had a blast. The wife was with him inside the room. They had a blast. The family was in the bigger house. They had a blast. The neighbors had a blast. You understand? And that for me is the thing that is important when you're doing work, to also evoke in people. Because there are people who have had these things. In Marikana, as much as the men were dying there and the guns were heard by other people, the trauma did not end with the families of these men, the children, the wives. It also is living with the people in the soil of Marikana, in the plants of Marikana, in the stones in Marikana, in the air of Marikana is where, you know, all those things are living with us. And the air is polluted, the tree, the flower, the butterfly, the ant, the other living organisms. When you are marauding those people with those guns, as they fall onto the grass, what does the grass say for me? What does it feel? What pain does it, you know, the living organisms there feel? And for me, that is the thing that, you know, I think theater needs to do. We need to be able to provoke, to invoke, you know, other things that, you know, are being felt, you know, in the absence of what we are trying to evoke. Because in the paper is the presence of what is abstracted, and then there's an absence of something. And for me, the sound, you know, was a way to bring that world into this moment so that people can, you know, genuinely connect with the experience, the lived experience of what it means to have, you know, caused death, what it means, you know, to have been violent, what it means to have murdered people, what it means, you know, to have killed the tree, you know, and get the paper out of it. Is the paper worth it? And for me, that is the thing. And I think, you know, for me in this time also, you know, the National Arts Festival in you know, recognizing or wanting this production to be part of, their main festival, because stories needs to be shown, stories needs to be performed for people to learn, to continue to sober up in the situations where we are facing chaos, like we are facing chaos right now. I can't believe that the Phoenix thing happened, where outside of the looting, somebody has been waiting, and violently brewing the idea that these are people I don't want next to me, and therefore, when an opportunity arises, I'm going to burn them. I'm going to burn their shacks. I'm going to kill them. That idea wasn't given birth by looting. It is an idea that is bringing in an individual who has influenced other people, and then they did that. And for me, it's that kind of a behavior that we need to be speaking to. That is the kind of the behavior we need to be inquiring, and with the goal to change.
Why do people need to see this show? And I'm going to ask you this as I ask you to make the last origami.
I've made a beautiful origami.
No, not those ones. Are bigger ones.
Yeah, so I think for me is that I don't think people must see the show. I think people need to see the show. I think people need to see shows, not only ours. Sure. They need to still experience, other ways of fulfilling, humanity, especially in the time of, a pandemic like this, in the time of, loss of contact with, people, in the time of, being alone. Yeah, in the time of illness, we also need, an otherness. We need to see, an elsewhere as much as we experience in the now here. I think it is important that, we find other ways of inquiring about our own behaviors and our own selves. And the National Arts Festival is providing an array of shows from, many artists, from dance to music to, theater to, So I think it is important that, people, experience that, not just Commission Continua, but many other, art shows that are there. It will be on the 27, 28, and 29. And you can
video
find
on demand.
Yeah, and then on video on demand, and you can find that on the National Arts Festival website, and experience many other shows, and make engage with the festival, engage with the art. Artists are workers too, artists are human beings as well, so we need to hear each other, and it's just for that sake for me that I feel like people need to engage with different views and of being in the world, and that's for me the thing. So you've made a better fly and you feel better.
So you made a spoken origami and I made a real one. I've made two, by the way, and he's made one awkward thing that we don't know what it is.
Guys,
but
if
anyways,
you know the future, this is what is going to be flying into the moon very soon.
This is what it means to be the difference between a doer and a speaker. Guys, thank you so much. Check out the show. Keep checking out the Bubblegum Connect episodes that will be coming up as well. Thank you so much for listening to us ramble about something or nothing. And yeah, check out the show.